You are now listening to F&B Radio.
And welcome to F&B Radio. My name is Lindsay Collins, and I am your host. I've been threatening to have a guest on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I finally have gotten my shit together enough to actually have her on the show. She's here today. I was just laughing because I'm like, I only know you like I'm an algorithm. I know you as an Instagram handle, but Mare Brugler. I wanted to tell the people at home listening how Mare and I came to be on this podcast together, because throughout doing the show and living in Charleston, you see all these people and you meet people and you see people working in kitchens. And I met you I first like kind of heard about you because you were working at 2, right?
No, actually, so I first started out at Le Folly, and I remember seeing your like VIP ticket.
They were like, this person is hard to deal with.
And it was like worked with Caitlin Michael. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then, I met different people along the way who were on the podcast. And then eventually I was at Chubby Fish.
That's okay. That's what it is. I was like, it was like an amazing restaurant.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That remains like one of the most amazing restaurants in the whole city. And I was like, gosh, she's so cool. She works at Chubby. Like, Le Folly is amazing too. There are like so many good places that you've worked. So we've struck up a friendship clearly through Instagram, because I'm like getting all my facts wrong. This is what happens. But I want to learn a little bit more about how you kind of got into food. But I want to tell the audience up front that after working in food in really, really, really great restaurants here and also out in LA, Meredith, you lost your sense of taste and smell, or just taste?
Both.
Wow.
Smell, but it changes every day.
Okay. As a result of COVID, and we started kind of chatting about this in the DMs, and I was like, this is such an odd thing to have happen. Like, I heard tons of people saying they lost their sense of taste and smell, and I don't know why I never like put it together like in the frame of a chef or someone working in food, but I was like, it comes back though, right? But it just like kind of mystified me, and I was like, wait, what's going on? And then she told me that she had moved to Vermont to get fresh air, and I thought this was the coolest concept. So we're gonna get into all that, like how it's going, where you're at, if you've got your taste and sense of smell back. But first, like, let's just give the audience a little background on you. Are you from Charleston?
No, so I'm from Ohio, like most people in Charleston.
Yes.
Get back to Ohio. So I moved down to go to culinary school at Trident Technical, and then from there, so I helped. I was kind of the beginning team of Le Folly.
Nice.
And then from there, helped open Chubby Fish, and while we were waiting for it to open, I did a stint at Leon's. And then I did some stuff at the Dewberry, kind of just like hopping around, as I feel like most people in Charleston have one job. You kind of have like 3.
Yes, definitely.
Then from there I went to LA, and I worked at a fine dining spot that closed down during the pandemic, but I had been working part-time at Found Oyster, which would be, oh my gosh,
so cool. I love Ari. I love everything Ari does, and I did not get to go out there when I was in LA. Just the timeline didn't work, but I was really, really fucking bummed, because that place looks amazing.
Oh, it is such a great place.
It's just a little tiny little jewel box of a spot.
It was, 26 seats in the beginning, and they now had the patio, but it is a little just a New York spot, almost, or East Coast spot in the middle of LA, and everyone's obsessed with it. It's
so cool. You're so cool. I think that's so great. How did you get into restaurants? Because that's to go from culinary school into restaurants like that, I feel like that's a really kind of lucky. I don't know. I feel like a lot of other people kind of wander around and then they figure out the industry and then they find cool places to work. But I feel like you kind of hopped right into very cool places.
Yeah. I want to be kids, number 5.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that though. I love big families. If I had more money, I would have a lot more kids, because I just think they're awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up and I was like, okay, I wasn't athletic, and I was just I need to find something I'm good at. So I picked cooking at a young age and just kind of stuck with it and always loved it. So then when I had the opportunity to move down to Charleston, um, being one of 8 kids, I had to pay for school. And so going to technical school, which isn't much, thankfully, I started, I knew someone from Farfalle, so I started working there. And there were some days, you cried because of paying semester dues, but I just really loved, I felt like I feel so comfortable in kitchens. It's like, when you work in food and bev and you're just like, what else could I do?
Yeah, no, I do. I feel like that all the time because now that I don't work in food and bev, I'm like, what am I doing? Why? No, I think if you just get that, if you get it or if you're comfortable there, it's just like a fit for you. And I think that's cool that you found that like kind of right out of high school. Like I feel like most people, like I happened into it by like, while I was in college, like trying to make money on the side. And I didn't really know that that's what I wanted to do, but I think that's so neat that you did. And then you went after it. And so what was your experience like in the first couple of places? Like when you work at a place like Farfalle or Chubby Fish, like what are the hardest things like from getting out of culinary school to actually like doing the work in a functioning restaurant?
I remember it was really hard to be a young female, having worked around so many older males and just being like, not knowing, like you can still be feminine and work in restaurants around all these guys. But I was like, I have to be tough. No crying in baseball. Like, you have to kind of carry your own. And so I think I had to pick up like an ego pretty early on and had to like really be sassy and to be like, this is who I am, like, try to hurt me, which then they did, but I wouldn't cry about later. But I also worked with like James London helped at Chubby Fish. He helped me learn flavoring at a really young age, and I learned how to butcher fish at a really young age, and just like
that's so cool.
You learn little skills that you're like, none of my friends are like taking trash out at midnight and like trying to heave it over into like the huge dumpster, but like, this is so cool.
Yes. No, it is so cool. And I think that's another one of the things, like we chat in the DMs all the time. You're so kind and will often say stuff like, being a female in the industry like that. I think a lot of us, and I'm going to speak for myself here, but I often will kind of balk against like, I don't want to be called a female chef or I don't want to be called a this. But the reality is that's a defense mechanism because you're just trying to like blend in, like not be treated differently. And at the same time, there are like actual barriers. It's kind of like a persona you have to put on. Like, I think we all have one at work, whether you're a male or a female, everyone's kind of putting on a persona like, okay, like I'm hard pressed to believe that people are who they are at work completely. You know what I mean? There's an amount of like, I got to preserve self-preservation that comes into it. Cooking is really hard. There's a lot of physicality that is quite frankly, just not the same for guys and girls. And so it can be a really intimidating place. I think the industry's come a really long way in terms of how they treat people. I hope they have, but I still know that it's like very much like you have a little something more to prove and it can be so challenging. And I think that's been like the things that I've resonated the most with when you and I chat. We'll just be like how to be a girl in a kitchen or how to be a girl in the industry or how to be, whatever, a person at all in food and beverage, but especially when you're trying to like find your way. I think that can be challenging, but it's good to have mentors and people who can teach you amazing skills, but you still, I feel like, need like someone that is kind of in your shoes or has been in your position, whether it's being a girl or if it's being a sous chef or whatever it is. It can be really challenging because there is that like be tough. And I don't think people really know, and people say this all the time. They're like, it's a physically hard job, but I don't think people really understand like how shitty it is to come to work with cramps and have to like do heavy lifting.
Oh my God.
Right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. When the amount of men who are like, it's so hot in here and it's so dry. And I'm like, I
Dude.
am taking so much Motrin right now just to stay on my feet. Please shut up.
Exactly. No, it's
Yeah.
a totally different animal, and I just have so much respect for the places that you've worked and all the stuff that you've done and how you like kind of continue to carve your own path and do things how you want to do them, which is the most interesting thing. When you said you got COVID and lost your taste of sense, why can't I say that? It's like I just can't get it right.
Yeah.
Your sense of taste and smell, that had to be like really, really terrible.
Yeah. I mean, well, first, I feel like to backtrack, I feel like when I talk to you in your DMs after I listen to a podcast is like when I'm like, I wish that we were cooking together in a kitchen because there's so many times after shifts, I'm just like, what just happened? And is this normal? And like,
Yes.
I can talk to my sister about it because I have 5 sisters, but they are like, they can kind of give me advice on their department of their career. And I'm like, okay. And I had, my best friend, Rachel Pierce, kind of who was that person in the shoes.
Love
who'd
her.
be like, oh girl. Yeah.
Love
she
her
is.
so much. What a
She
boss.
was a blessing in disguise to come and swoop me in and be like, this is everything you've learned up to this point. Like, let's just make it a little healthier. And even, I feel like I was in the beginning before the Me Too movement happened. And post that, restaurants are completely different. So
They are. And I'm obviously not working in a restaurant right now. So I feel like you're saying, they have come so far, but I still think that it's like a different sort of challenge because it's almost like people like hold you with like kid gloves where they're like, oh, I don't want to say anything to offend you. I want to be careful about like you become like this other thing in the room that they have to be conscious of. And by, I don't know why. It's just that it was such a drastic shift in culture that just could not be integrated smoothly. So, but it still was weird for women on the other side. Like I remember specific instances where like language around things that we said in the kitchen, how there's always a vernacular that kind of pops up in every single restaurant that you have. And it's chatter that people say back and forth, and it's not necessarily harmful, but sometimes it is rooted in things that are not healthy or are not okay. And you're like, wait, why are we saying that? And as we watched people kind of struggle to like, oh shit, let me clean up my act and like stop doing that. Or now I see that that's inappropriate. It didn't just happen overnight. It was like kind of awkward. And then I still was left feeling like, yeah, but I'm still the thing that people are like, can't quite figure out how to deal with,
Yeah, because it's weird because, as females, you like kind of want to like be in the joke, but then you're like, am I the joke? Or
Right.
like, is this
Yes.
are people the joke? And
well said.
yeah, and then when it starts to become like more inappropriate, then you're like, there are just sometimes where I make a joke and I'm like, that's not appropriate, but like, but that's what I grew up in.
I know. I have a really hard time because I'm like an old timer now. So I'm like on the weird end of like most of my career was spent in the inappropriate ages. So even I have to be like, how much of this is my conditioning that I like find this funny? Or is this just something that was funny until it wasn't funny? It's so fucked up. It's just so hard to sort out.
I know. That's when it kind of goes into like the like, is it just kitchens that like that's why I'm comfortable, or is it just this is how I grew up in these, how my brain developed. So but yeah, I got COVID December 2020. So when it was like
fresh,
cool, you didn't tell anyone, you really shamed. I got it 3 days before my 24th birthday, so I was like, all right. So on my birthday, I found out I really couldn't taste it because I already had dropped off. We were doing Leon's fried chicken to go then. And I remember dipping it in buffalo hot sauce. And I was like, oh, this tastes like nothing.
Oh my God.
So that jump started it.
Wow.
And yeah, so, I took funny videos of me biting into an onion and couldn't taste anything. And I'm like, this is so funny. And then, it is scary, but okay, it'll come back. And then slowly it kind of didn't. And I started to go back to sound. And I really, after 3 weeks of quarantine, you're like, okay, then life goes back.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. You have, like, I was running out of breath a lot. Ari would be talking to me about butchering a salmon, and I would just be like, I can't hear you because I can't focus, and running out of breath under my mask, and just couldn't taste and smell. It was just like a lot of things adding up. And then my mom calls it Swiss cheese brain, because I like there's holes in what I could like remember throughout a day. And yeah, it was insane.
Wow. I mean, and it didn't happen from COVID. This was like years and years before, but like I would be like really, really run down, or like my immune, you know, when you work yourself kind of down to nothing, when I would be working like overtime at the restaurant that I worked at in New York was like a thing. And they paid really well, and it was like kind of encouraged. So I would work sometimes 60 to 70 hours a week front of house, and it was like the norm for me. And I started to get like inflammation in my ears, and the fans in a kitchen, like it started to be like just this sea of noise that I really could not, like you're saying, I don't know if you haven't ever experienced anything like that, but the lack of focus that you're able to like kind of pull in when you have something else sensory that's off, it's crazy. It's like really debilitating. And I would get through shifts like just kind of hoping or like pretending that I heard what people said and like guessing, trying to guess right. You know what I mean? Like, or just being like, I'm pretty sure that's what they said, but but too afraid to be like, what's that? Like, it's just a really weird feeling to suddenly have a sense not functioning.
Oh yeah. You're like, it's like everything is thrown off. You don't feel connected to yourself or like what's happening, but you're like, I guess I'll just keep going, because there is no slowing down, especially in a restaurant. There's no like putting your toes in to just kind of get back. There is none of that.
No, it's either you're off or you're on. I always joke about that. I'm like, I went on maternity leave, and by maternity leave, I mean, I quit my job. And then like, I just like didn't, there's just like, it's kind of just one speed. You're either working or you're not working. And that's sort of the thing. So how long was it before you like gave it and realized that it wasn't coming back? And what did that mean for you?
So it was kind of like, I was like, okay, maybe it'll come back like after 2 weeks. And then it kept not coming back. And I was like, okay, it started to become a game where it'd be like next month. And then I would tell people, and they'd be like, oh, well, I knew someone who got it back after 6 months. So I was like, okay. So it was just like more benchmarks of like, well, it'll come back here. And I then was like, I got the vaccine in April, and I was like, perfect, this will help it. And I get it. And 2 weeks later, everything went to garbage. Like my nose smelled hot garbage. And
you mean you were literally smelling the smell of garbage?
Oh, hot.
Oh my God. Mirror, this is like a hell situation.
Oh, I would like, so it was like hot garbage, and then garlic would really like accelerate. And so, but I couldn't smell, but that would accelerate it. And so there was one instant that Ari and I were making a family meal together, because I told them I couldn't, and they were Found was extremely like helpful. And I was just like, I can't do things by myself because I don't trust myself, and I like don't taste it. And so we were making like marinated broccolini, and I remember making lemon and garlic, and I had a mask on, and it just smelled like I was grating garlic, and I was like, holy shit, this is insane. So I like took a moment, trying not to cry, because I'm just like, it is what it is. And then I had someone taste it, and they're like, yeah, that's like, you need like salt and acid and like, all the 5 flavors in there. And I was like, I just broke down, and I was like,
oh man,
that is, because as cooks, like it's like service, and then the ability to cook is like what you run on.
Yeah.
And so then that was like what my identity was. And I was like, this is gone. I don't know who I am. Like, I was like, cooking is me, and I'm not cooking anymore.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they call it parosmia, is when things start to taste or smell wrong to you. Like, I couldn't do coffee, cigarettes smelled really insane.
Oh my God.
Garlic, onions. It was like, like lemons taste, they still do smell like burning rubber with citrus juice on it.
Oh my God. Oh my God, dude. That's
Yeah.
horrible.
I had an extremely incredible like family in LA of just like friends who would help me, but I was like, and in like Charleston and Ohio, like people I would call and I just be like, I'm not okay.
Wow.
It was every day, and it's like I things started to smell like human spit. I literally
Ugh.
like would go to parties and I could smell everyone's breath or
Ah.
everyone's BO and nothing
Ah.
else. Thanksgiving and could only smell everyone's BO, and I was just like,
Dude.
what is happening?
I'm not laughing, but that is
Hey.
so fucked up. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
that's insane. I cannot I mean, I never would have expect like people like write whole entire stories and like get headlines because Grant Katz, from Millennia, like loses his taste of like sense of taste. And I'm like, that is just something that is truly catastrophic. And I think people were just like kind of without thinking about it, acting like, oh, it's just a side effect of COVID, not seeing it as something permanent, myself included. Like it never occurred to me that it would not come back.
Yeah, the amount of people who brought up Grant, and they're, like, well, like, and he adapted, and you're like, yeah, but also you're hearing kind of like success story, I think, of like the end
Right.
that, look at everything that he's accomplished, but you're like,
well, and he was already accomplished before that as well. I mean, that's the difference is like that he has a base and he has things in place, like points of reference, and was like, had all of these things already. So I'm not taking, it's still amazing what he's been able to do, but I'm like, it is in no way the same thing. It's not like, oh, well, you just, so-and-so can do it without their sense of taste and smell. And you're like, that's just not the same. And also the thing that you said that really just kind of breaks my heart is like, that is your whole identity. That's what you've been working for. It's not like it was a thing that you were doing on the side. Like that feeling is so real.
Yeah, I kind of was like, I kind of accept it, because I didn't want to have sad thoughts, but I was like, I don't think I could ever be a head chef anymore or a sous chef. Like, this is me in the deep pits.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who can trust me with tasting the food if I can't taste it? And I, like I said, like my taste and smell change every day. It's getting stronger now, but it's still like there was a while I couldn't taste or smell my own body, and so I would either have to trust someone else to smell me, like one of my friends, or like there's a real disconnect with your own self. And with me being one of 8 kids, I was like, okay, this is my identity is cooking, and like this is, and like working so hard towards that only to lose it. And I was like, that's kind of when I made the decision to move to Vermont in July of last year, to be like, I'm not happy, and I can't, like, I can push through it, or I can just kind of like go feel the feels and get better air and just kind of figure it out.
How did you decide to go to Vermont?
So my sister lives in Vermont. She's lived here for a few years now. And I came, and it's like unbelievably gorgeous. And I was like, well, I guess I can, drive that amount, and I will just be for the summer. I'll go farm. It'll be really nice to be around my sister and her partner's family, and then I'll come back to LA. And then I was like, I got here, and I would go on hikes. I would go on hikes every day, and I would like cry most of them and like feel my feels, try to do dinners. And I started farming, and onions last year especially smelled like rotting, just not okay. And I worked on and we harvest 30,000 onions last summer.
Oh my God.
I was just pulling them out, and I'm just like, it is what it is.
Oh, this is a dumb question, but does it ever like get normalized, or is it constantly offensive? Or is it just like, being colorblind or something like, this is just the color I see, or does it always smell bad?
Oh, it's like, yeah, I think it's more like the colorblind thing. Cause I always say it's like watching a sunset, you know what it looks like, but having to have someone explain it to you just to make sure. But and like, I started working, I missed the kitchen so much. So in Vermont, I started working in a restaurant, and my chef constantly is like, your taste is very much there. Like you season things very well. So like, don't,
Amazing.
like, I think it's muscle memory too, and like, I just kind of learned to like adapt to everything at this point. Because it was a year that I had first gotten COVID in Christmas 2021, and I turned 25, and I was like, I can't let this be my story anymore. And it was like on my birthday, I was like, I feel better. I feel like I don't have to be like, next month I'll get it, next month. Like, it's either here or not. Like,
Wow.
life.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have to reach like a certain level of acceptance with it
Yeah.
in some way, like make peace with it. But I don't think that it ever, I mean, can get easier. Especially, I mean, it just seems so cruel that it's like the thing that you love and were doing the most and
Yeah.
are still doing. I'm just so amazed by you because I'm like, you're still in it. Like you're kind of doing the most difficult thing, because a lot of people listening would probably be like, well, I would just go into something else where I didn't have to like be faced with it every day. And I'm just so in awe of the fact that you're like not only like still farming and still doing things, but like I think it's a cool route to like say I'm going to take some time, and like just the way that you kind of found a quote unquote solution. I mean, there's no solution as of yet, but I'm like that, just taking the steps to get yourself in a better place rather than just staying there and kind of spiraling down or continuing to do something that was just making you feel terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think about like, I don't know. I never like, I am someone who's like, I wonder what would happen if this didn't happen. But I think with this, I'm like, I do tend to tell people like, this is what my story is. And I kind of just see like what they tell me. I actually had a guy in Vermont, because I worked the farmer's market with the farm, and he was like, oh, I'm a chiropractor. Let me feel your neck. And he's like, oh, you have a lump on the back, and that means that something's disconnected, and it happened during COVID. Which, if you pay $200 on 6 sessions, I can get rid of it. And I like looked this guy up, and he's like, not reparable in any way. Like,
Oh
he's
my
just like,
God.
but it's like I get really good things. I've like met a spiritual healer at a restaurant bar
Whoa,
because of
cool.
from LA, of course, but I was in Boston, and
Amazing.
then I meet other people who kind of give me like a story that they've heard, or like they send me a TikTok, like
Sure.
all the cool kids are TikTok are doing like different.
Yeah, they're like, you can heal yourself on TikTok. Have you ever tried to get medical advice on TikTok? It's not advisable.
Yeah, no. So yeah.
So did you try to seek any sort of medical, like, were you like, I'm going to see a doctor, or were you just like, there's no point? Like,
I like have talked to people about it. And a lot of, I mean, more in the beginning, they're like, there's nothing we can do about it. If we knew, we would be millionaires, which I think that's like not the best answer at all.
no, that's the word. That's the dumbest thing you could say. Like, thank you so much. I'm sorry you're not a millionaire, but also I wish I had my abilities back.
Yeah. So, I think it's just gonna have to, there's like vitamins I can take. Zinc is really great. Oysters have 73 grams of zinc in them, and that is the most.
Really?
The next is steak, and it has 7 grams in like a 3-ounce portion.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yes,
I had no idea.
Because your COVID symptoms are the same as zinc deficiency symptoms. So I take zinc every day, and like. I think it's alpha lipoic acid is like something on TikTok that I saw.
Yes. No, I've heard that. I've heard that has a lot of great health benefits actually. But yes.
Yeah. So just like no doctor has kind of given me like any answer, but just trying to like do home remedies or smell tests. But smell tests aren't doing anything. So I'm just kind of like, well, either just comes back or it doesn't. Just gotta keep going.
Oh my God. You're amazing. I think that's gotta be
Right.
so hard. I can't imagine.
It's hard.
I can't imagine having to deal with that. But so when you're farming, does it feel
Yeah.
close to being, does it feel like something that you're like, this scratches that itch to be around like beautiful ingredients and do things like that? Or is it like one of those things where you're like, I'm so close, I could just plate this? Is it like torturing you, or is it healing you? Is it helping you?
Both, because like I don't know, I'm sure other restaurant people have this, but it is farming. It was so much time alone that I was like, get me out of here. Like I want to be inside service.
Yeah.
Ass kicked, like chef yelling at me 10 different things and me just like head down. Instead I was like, okay, let's go through the feelings. The part of time I was like, how would I, what are different things I do with this carrot that I'm harvesting? But it was like it was a blessing, and just like me realizing how I wanted to move, or like that I just wanted to be in a restaurant again. So yeah, I really enjoy it. I did enjoy it though.
Yeah.
And especially like Green Mountains, and you're just like, this is insane. I don't like, this is unbelievable.
Oh, Vermont's like one of the most beautiful states that I've ever been to. I mean, I haven't spent a ton of time in there, but when I lived in Boston, I would go and like kind of explore.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I have a really good friend of mine that I used to work with in New York. I'll look her restaurant up, and it's called Solo Farm and Table, but I don't know where in Vermont it is, but I'll send you the link. But
Yes.
yeah, it just, everything that she put, like, it's always just her and her family, like, being adorable. And it looks just very, very lush and beautiful. Yes. And like peaceful. And I think I just think when you're in this industry, like, I think a lot of people, even if they didn't have something as terrible with what you're dealing with, I think a lot of people are coming out of COVID being like, what is my place in the industry? And I'm it's like a privilege to not have it be a physical thing that's compromised, but I'm also like, I think it's inspiring to many people, and like your story is sort of applicable to many people, like trying to figure out like where they fit in. I mean, yours is clear. You would love to be back in the kitchen, in the mix, and I think you will be. I think I don't know. I mean, there's a million different ways to be a part of a restaurant.
Right.
But I think a lot of people, myself included, are kind of struggling with like, what even are restaurants now? What are restaurants the same as they were before? And like the Me Too movement aside, like, is taking care of people the same as it was before? I was mostly front of house. Cooking is so hard. It's so hard. It's somehow way harder than even just being in restaurants. They're both very demanding jobs, but like front of house, I just don't think you're dealing with the same amount of hours. And like I said, the physical labor, but how many people are like just out there right now trying to be like, where do I fit in, and how do I continue to do this thing that I'm really passionate about, and maybe at a speed that's more my speed, or in a place that's not so difficult or expensive? Like there's just all these things that we used to kind of use to choose like where we would work. Like, oh, I'm going to go to this place because this has amazing restaurants, or whatever it might be, and just I'll figure out how to live in that city on this salary. So many things don't make sense anymore. And what I think is so cool and inspiring about your story is that you were like, I'm just going to like take some time and actually take it out and look at it and like walk around and live in it and see what the answer that I can come up with is, because there's no roadmap or blueprint for like, oh, are you sick of being in restaurants, but you still want to care about food? Try this job. Like there isn't any answer to that quiz. It's just a lot of people trying to put priorities on a scale and weigh them out and be like, what does that mean for me now?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that it's hard because everyone who's looking at that right now, like you don't want restaurants to close and you want the staffing shortage to happen, but I think that's, everyone's looking at it and they're like, well, how am I in food, and how do I get money? Because restaurants don't pay that well as much. Now restaurants are starting to like pull tips or whatever, but it's just tough, like trying to figure out that both of like the labor and pay, and just being, you feel good about what you're doing, and go home and you're like, I can live a normal life. And then also, when you look at successful chefs growing up, and like we all have seen chefs who like work very hard, like 100 hours a week, and then this is how they do this, and then this is, it's like the blueprint up until now was always just work really hard to the bone. You'll succeed. You'll get your Michelin star. You'll get whatever recognition, and then you'll be happy. And that's it. Like, then you just restaurant open and everyone wants to come and work for you, and you like keep changing the minds of customers. But I don't think that that's like what's going to happen. And I see a trend of chefs are starting to do like a farm to table again, but like the restaurants on the farm, just so they like have more of a purpose in life.
Yeah, and less of an overhead, or not necessarily, but I'm also like, I've been trying to crack that similar puzzle where I'm like, someday I do want to own a bunch of land, and that's like my dream. I would like to just disappear in the middle of nowhere, but then also have the option to throw really fun parties or events, or like something that doesn't have to fit into this like really kind of antiquated mold that doesn't really work anymore. Like, if we're honest, restaurants as they were before Me Too and before, people being honest about what things cost, like the consumer doesn't want to pay what it costs to pay people fairly. And that is the thing. I don't think restaurants are inherently evil. I'm like, this has been the way they set up because this is the way they can function. It's sort of like a survival thing that restaurants have been in. And now it's like people are asking more of them. And I'm happy about that because I want it to be a professional, actual fucking job that people can do for a lifetime. But I'm, as a person who's like tried to run that race, I question whether it's even possible, because I'm like, even if I didn't have kids that I wasn't seeing at night when I was working in restaurants, my knees don't want to do this anymore. You know what I mean? Like, at a certain point, like and that's partly because there was a mentality of like, work hard, play hard. And I was not taking care of my body, and my body started to be like, hey, fuck this. Like, I'm not going to, I can do this, but I can only do it for so long.
Yes.
And so I think on all sides, it's just sort of a dismantling of what even a restaurant is. And there's obviously going to always be the ones that just continue to kind of function in the way that they did before the pandemic. But I've noticed that my experiences in restaurants, even how I feel in restaurants, is different now. Not necessarily in a bad way, but I'm just kind of taking another look at like, do I love going out? Like, what do I love about going out? Like, what, and kind of trying to glom onto the things that make me happy when I'm out. Cause I feel like I've had a lot of experiences that were confusing to me, not because they were bad experiences, but because I've changed post-pandemic,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just ripe for trying to, like, I think the smart people who are passionate like yourself are gonna crack that code and get it to a place where it's like, yeah, what does it look like for me to still do what I love and be on a team? And obviously your specific thing is like its own thing, but I think it's a relevant conversation no matter what the challenge you're facing.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
So what do you think is next for you now? Like, where are you working now? You're in
Yeah, I'm in Vermont and Burlington. I work at Hen of the Wood. It's a Vermont restaurant. Essentially, we just use whatever is around us. And it's just been I wasn't sure if I could go leaving Found. I wasn't sure if I could go work at another restaurant because of like, how can I even explain? I can't taste and smell. Like, what am I just going to have chefs like taste everything? Like, just didn't seem like it was doable for me. And so when I found Hen, the menu changes almost every day. And this really great system set up where you can kind of come in, you can be like, hey, I liked what the set we were doing on the crudo, but can we change it to this because we have asparagus in? And chef's like, cool, sounds great. If you're passionate about it and it tastes good, then good. Let's go ahead. Tell me by 3 so I can print it out on the menu correctly. And I think that, I not knowing what my path was going to be and that Vermont was going to be part of that in COVID, but I think it was supposed to be this way in like some kind of capacity that like I can work at a place that gives me that confidence again to create and cook a plate and cook dishes and put dishes on the menu.
That's amazing.
It is really, really incredible. I don't really know what's next. I have no idea.
No one does. No one does.
I mean, restaurants look weird right now. And, you know, who knows if Vermont's in the cards or back in LA or what, I don't know. And it's like, you know, it's hard to travel with airplane prices. And then like, it's just so many variables again, but.
Are you afraid of getting COVID again and having it get worse? Or is that not something that's crosses your mind?
No, I kind of just like, I mean, how much worse can it get? Like I've already had,
True.
I think I thought I lost it again in January because there was like a good week where I couldn't taste anything again. And I thought I'd come so far, and I like just like called my mom crying a few days at work, just like, I don't know what's on. But then it came back, and like I said, it changes every day. It could be like really strong some days, and I can smell asparagus cooking in a pan. And my restaurant does this thing where we like start clapping in the kitchen, and it's an open kitchen, so then the whole restaurant claps.
Oh my God.
And you know, there's no good reason for the clap, but they'll like clap for me, and it's like really incredible and a really nice soft moment. So
oh my God, that's like making me tear up. That's so, they just start clapping. That's
like, it's so funny. The boy, like if a boy like, I don't know, does something embarrassing, we'll start clapping. Or if someone's birthday, we'll just be like, yeah, okay. And like the whole restaurant just claps, because it's like, you know, like everyone just like follows the herd of what everyone else is doing.
That's so cute. I mean, in so many ways, I'm like, that's what I mean when I say the chatter. It's almost like being on a baseball team where it's like, you kind of just are like, you're just in it. You're just kind of going back and forth with energy, even if it's something like a physical motion, like clapping or a thing that you say all the time. That's like, it's just an exchange of energy that sort of, when they pop up in restaurants like that and they're so different, I'm like, that's what I mean about the culture just being so unique. That's the beautiful part about restaurants. That's the addictive part. Cause you're like, well, what are the other ones like? I could always be like, I love this place so much. I wonder what it's like to work at this place, just because, you know, there's a whole different set of rules and casted characters and like beautiful little things like that exist in them too. And I don't think those get highlighted as much. It's usually like the terrible things that happen, but there's a reason people are addicted to working in them, and it's not because the conditions are terrible. It's because they're very fun places to be.
Right. And where else would you be for 10 hours a day on a Thursday?
Yeah, exactly. So you are actually getting dishes on the menu. So that's like a step in the direction of, I think that's so cool, because that would have been something that felt kind of out of reach not even that long ago, you know?
Yeah. I did do some like dinners in LA before I left with my good buddy who's now a sous chef at Found, Mike, and we kind of like collabed on so many things, because I was like, I can't do this alone. So it is really great to now be able to like do some dishes alone, or like have chefs like kind of bounce off ideas, because I think it's more fun cooking with someone else and just be like, what do you think about this? And then they teach you about technique. And I think that's why we're all doing it in the first place. Like,
yes.
You go to a certain restaurant, like you said, because you're like, what can this person even teach me? And the guy next to you worked at a pizza spot when he was 17 that taught him like how to make really like dirty ranch, but that's so good. And like, you just like play off each other.
No, it's so true. And those things like kind of stay with you. And I don't think people like, I never went to culinary school, but I definitely learned to cook later, like almost through osmosis. It felt like, just because I would remember things that people had talked about, or like how something really simple, like how a chef at a restaurant I worked explained like how to build flavors in a chili recipe. And he was just talking about like adding dried spices in different increments throughout the process of the cooking to make sure they don't all just kind of die. Like just things that I'm like, this is so, I'll just never forget it. But at the same time, it's not like it's at the forefront of my mind when I'm making something. It just becomes a part of your DNA, and you go forward and you're like, I'll take that now. And now this dirty ranch is like a part of my repertoire, and it makes it, it makes it such a like transformative experience where you kind of bring all those people with you. I think it's really, really, I think about it every time I cook, because I'm rarely cooking something that I'm like, this I made up totally on my own. It's never that. It's always like, this reminds me of something that someone else showed me. And and I use all of those skills to kind of make this happen. But Were there things that did taste good, or what did you live on? Well, I'm so curious about your eating habits once you found out, like, was there a period where you were like, I can't even face food. I don't want to even eat.
Yeah, I didn't like go out to restaurants a lot because I feel like when I would go out to restaurants, like I remember going to Rustic Canyon after I lost it. And I was like, what's the point of paying this anymore? Because I can't taste those like little flavors that like, and you go and you're like, that was so cool that their andouille tasted like this. And how do I get that? So I stopped putting salt in a lot of my food because I was like, well, if I can't taste it, I don't want to get bloated for no reason.
True.
You know, amount of salt is like, it's great amount, but it makes it taste good. But I just kind of like lived off, I couldn't eat eggs for a while, couldn't eat fish. Bananas were actually okay, weirdly. I feel like I ate a lot of rice. I didn't eat like garlic or onion or lemon, or I still can't eat cucumbers really, or raspberries or blackberries or squash or cilantro.
Damn.
But I don't know, I guess my food was just kind of I definitely like lost a few pounds in the beginning, which is sick.
Yeah, I guess so. You're like, nothing I used to like tastes good.
Yeah. So I stopped ordering out and just kind of like
saved a bunch of money probably.
Yeah. Soup, yeah.
Wow. And then now these days, like, are you eating eggs again, or have things slowly come back where you're like, oh my God, finally, this is okay. Like, this is bearable. I can eat this again.
Yeah, I think that happened the most like at the end of last year, thankfully. And so now it's just, I like am pretty normal on all my foods except like, so like, raw alliums or like the blackberry stuff. But, I kind of just was like, at some point, I was like, you just got to do it. I don't know. Like, I hate missing out on food.
Yeah, I know.
FOMO on a dish. So it is what it is.
It's so crazy. I just think it's so fun. It's just fun to talk to you because like we always chat, and then now I get to actually talk to you, and that's even more fun. And I've been trying to figure out a way to do call-ins where you can like actually pick up the phone while you're recording. And so this has just been an absolute delight. Your story is very moving, honestly, because I'm like, you just make it seem so, you just handle it with a lot of grace. And I know it's anything but easy.
Yeah, I definitely like everyone who I've called or like cried to have just helped me so much. And I've recorded so many voice memos on my phone of me just like, this is how I feel. Just like, I'm tired of telling other people because I'm sure they're tired of hearing it. So I'll just talk to myself. And
that's what I do, except then I put it out on the internet. And so that's I should probably just keep them as voice notes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I just think I think you're so cool, and I think I hope that you stay in food and beverage, and I hope that as long as it makes sense for you to, and I hope that's forever, because if that's what you want to do, then that's what you should do. But I think that your story is inspirational, like I said, for anybody that's like trying to figure out, maybe they came out of the pandemic like kind of sideways and don't really know where they fit in. I think your coping mechanisms are really useful and interesting and out of the box, because I'm like, a lot of people, like I said, would take a more like traditional, just like, oh well, I'm gonna move on and do something else. And I think it's cool to see like what you're doing and how you're getting through it.
Yeah, I think so far everything that's been brought to me since getting it and all the opportunities, I'm like, it makes sense to just keep going forward with what I'm doing. Doesn't seem like it's hurting me yet. So thank you for giving me this platform to talk about it. It is so great.
Oh my God.
Like, about it and to put into words so people don't. I feel like I'm crazy sometimes with it. So
I bet, because it's not something that people can see. So they're probably like, oh, you can taste a little bit, or like it's not that bad. You know what I mean? Like people are just like, you look fine. Like they're
like, oh, you can smell that. You can smell. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
parts. Don't worry about it.
I think it's so cool that you came on the show. I'm like really, really happy that you agreed to do it and we're like down to talk about it because I'm sure it's not easy and you did it in a really great way. And if you're listening and you live in Vermont, go see Mare. She's the coolest. And I that's why I love this whole thing is because the platform, like it's my one way to like keep my foot in the world that I miss dearly. So thanks for letting me walk around in it and live vicariously through you.
Well, thank you. This has been so fun.
Well, good luck with everything. I'll keep tabs on you. And if you move from Vermont, I want to know where, and I hope we can connect soon. But thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And thank you for listening. If you're listening at home, you know what to do. You can rate the show. You can review the show. Oh, I have to give one shout out. Oh my gosh. When I was at Graft on Sunday, I ran into a listener and her name was Jill and she's the fucking coolest. You can find her at Graft on Sunday. She was drinking a Joie Laid, like super cool, funky white wine by herself with sparkles in her hair. Like she was literally, I was like, I want to be you I hope that if I am like lucky enough to have lived a big life like she has, that I can be as cool as her because she was just posted up at the bar, fucking killing it. So I wanted to shout her out because she was so lovely and said hello to me. She has not rated the show because she said she doesn't know how, and so we'll give her a pass. But for those of you that do know how, you should. And then we'll see you next week. Bye, 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 bye. Pour passer des nuits à Rousseau, on enverrait des cartes postales. Je laisserai un mot sur le frigo. Déciderait de se faire la malle. Ta famille, les amis, le bureau.